Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our Abacus Accounting webinar today. My name is Perry Paxton Lafferty, and I'll be your host today as we go through some of the features of our general ledger. Now, first of all, I want to say kudos to everybody who's coming to a general ledger class. I know how exciting these can be, but y'all are wanting to start your Abacus accounting year off on the right foot, and I think that's a wonderful thing. Obviously, this is a webinar. It is supposed to give you a general overview of the general ledger of the Abacus accounting program. Of course, we have other classes available, and those are on a one-on-one situation where you just sit down with your trainer and go through any of your questions or topics that you would like to cover. Today, I kind of have to keep it on a broad scope, but there is a question section of your GoToWebinar panel that should be over there on the right-hand side of your screen, I think, that if you do have a question and you'd like to type it in, I will do my best to answer them in the time allotted today. But of course, you can always submit questions through webinars at abacusnext.com or abacuslaw.com. We'll always get back to you on those as well. So today's class is, like I say, going to be an overview of the general ledger section of the accounting program. We also will have a recording of this that you will be sent. I believe it's tomorrow or the next day as soon as they put it all together. But let's go ahead and get started here. Now, obviously, first thing, I'm in the accounting side of Abacus Law. So you've got our green screen up here. And what we're going to start with is all the way over here under our File drop-down menu. And we're going to talk a little bit about our chart of accounts. Okay, now the good news is all of you all should know that Abacus does have a chart of accounts. Many of you may have already edited or customized your chart of accounts a bit, which is great. If you do want help with it, just let us know. There's a pretty generic one that we send out. I have totally messed with mine over training sessions, so it's not going to look like yours. But you can customize this as far as adding new accounts, deleting accounts that you know you will never use, obviously editing and putting in the proper name of the accounts, trust account 1 and trust account 2 kind of sounds like thing 1 and thing 2, that you may want to simply highlight the account and click the edit button and then make changes to the name as you would like. Now, a lot of times people ask, why do we have the numbering sequence that we do? Well, I wish I knew, but I do know we have to use this numbering format. I know other accounting packages may not have such a strict guideline, but we do, so we've got to work within the rules. But the good news is we can help you with this if you would like to add to the chart of accounts. Now, most of us just stick with what Abacus has, but I do want you to know, since we're learning new stuff today, that you can add to this as far as the numbering goes. In other words, Abacus sends this out where the assets actually start with the number 1, the liabilities, the number 2, the capital or equity accounts are the number 3, revenue accounts start with a 4, and then expense accounts in the normal version of Abacus all start with a 5. Well, of course, you can add accounts that start with a 6, a 7, an 8, and a 9. So some folks have done this. A lot of times folks may do this because they have different locations. So they want to group their expenses by locations. So you can expand these and actually add more. As you can see, if I can get mine to go all the way to the bottom here, down. It actually ends in the 52,000 range, but there's lots more room. Now, if you have an established chart of accounts and you want to start a new year, yes, we can add new accounts, but if you have been using Abacus accounting, we can't just go in and delete accounts that have activity. But what you could do is actually mark the account inactive. All right, so I'm going to come back up here to the top, and of course there's just another way to browse is by actually typing in what you're looking for. So I'm going to say operating, so it takes me back up to the top. And you can come in, open an account with the edit button, and put it on an inactive basis, okay, right here. So that will keep those accounts from showing up on the chart of accounts unless you specifically ask for them. You can see down here at the bottom, there's a button to show inactive accounts. But that way, you can get them out of the way and not use them. Sometimes if I'm not going to be able to get to that for some reason, I haven't closed my month or my year yet, I just put in the words "do not use" in the front name of the description, and that way, hopefully, I'm reading what I'm doing sometimes, and I can see that I shouldn't be using that account. But inactive really is the way to go. Now, of course, before you mark it inactive, if you're trying to set up a new chart of accounts, move some things around, you're going to have to be doing journal entries to move them out of this old account into the new account. So don't mark them inactive until you've gotten that done. Otherwise, the program's going to beep at you a bit. Okay. While I'm here, I should mention that there are online banking features in here. If you like the bells and the whistles, if you check the box that says Enable Online Banking, you get this new tab. And then, of course, we got all kinds of new details to fill out here and more back here. And this then actually allows Abacus to download bank statements. Okay, it doesn't allow us to go online and do purchases or payments or anything like that, unfortunately. It simply allows us to download our bank statement and then reconcile it from there. So I can't say it offers all the gold in the world, but it's a little bit of something there. Okay, so numbering is the big thing here. Let me get this out of here so we can talk about this again for a minute. You only ever use the subheader accounts or detail accounts when you're doing your transactions. You all probably know that, but the type in the header accounts are pretty words that simply come through to our financial statements. So there are no transactions being done in a type account or a header account. And I'm talking about the level here. So that's something to keep in the back of your head. And of course, the numbering has something to do with the way it appears on your balance sheet and your income statement. So that's why I say if it looks weird, just ask, and we should be able to help you align the accounts up. Okay. So this is the big thing. We want to make sure we get started with this correctly or have this all set up before we get into actually doing transactions, which I know it's near the end of January already. But if you are thinking about making changes, no time like the present to get it done so that we can move forward. Okay. All right. Now, next, from that chart of accounts, the next thing to really talk about here is the default GL. And with mentioning the fact that maybe we're changing our chart of accounts a little bit, we may need to change the default accounts, because this is kind of like a subset that's in the little Abacus brain that when you go to do things in the program, it automatically knows either what account to show or what account to affect when you're doing things like posting client payments. So we got to make sure that these accounts line up with our chart of accounts. Abacus comes filled in a certain way, and if you do make changes and it's an account that is listed here, we have to make the changes here as well. The system's not smart enough just to make these changes because you added an account or changed an account on the chart of accounts. These payroll accounts are no longer anything we need to worry about, so just, the only thing I can say about that is if you're deleting accounts off your chart of accounts, it may say you can't do that because they're listed here. Well, in that case, I would come in and just assign these all the same account number just to let us do what we want to do. And, we don't utilize this anymore. They need to take it out of the system. But for right now, to get around that beeping at us, I would simply, if I want to delete this account, I'm going to need to change this to an account that exists, even though these will never be used. Okay, Abacus used to make its own journal entries and payroll. It no longer does that. Okay, I think that's enough about that fun chart of accounts. Next, if we're thinking about starting our accounting system in Abacus, in other words, we're bringing balances over from another software system or a manual set of books, the next step would be to get our balances in here. So once again, under File, under setup, we're going to go all the way down to the beginning account balances. So you can see this little section of our setup is really all for the accounting side. The rest of it is for the billing side, but these strictly are accounting. So here we are, beginning account balances, and this would be where you would come in and enter the balances from your trial balance in whatever program you're coming from. Now, Abacus cannot simply import them. I wish. But since the chart of accounts is so complicated, there's no way for us to line up Abacus chart of accounts with your old chart of accounts. So that means we, meaning you and I, have to do this. So you come in here and this would be completely blank. I've added a couple so you can just see what it looks like. But basically, you're going to enter the beginning balances from a trial balance. So what I would do is come to the end of an accounting period. Maybe it's the end of last year, okay? And you want to bring those balances over into Abacus, print out a TB from your other system, and then you're going to come in and one account at a time. You're going to click on the Add button, pull up the chart of account number from Abacus. Okay, let's get in here. Let me make something fun here. Okay, let's say accounting fees. Okay, how much is that dollar amount? Well, now here's where our accounting brain has to come into use. Are we bringing over a full trial balance from our other set of books, including all of our expenses and income from 2018? Or have we closed our year in our other accounting program, which I recommend, and now you're just having to bring over balances for your balance sheet accounts? Obviously, that would be the way to go because there's less work to do in Abacus. But it all depends on maybe our tax accountant. Have they gotten to a point where they can do that? Maybe not yet. All right. We also could come back here and enter beginning balances at a later date and just start an Abacus without those balances. Okay, so I'm not saying, or what I am trying to say, I should put it that way, is you don't have to have beginning balances in here to start using your program. So if the accountant is going to close our year in our other software and we only have to bring over balance sheet accounts, I would definitely wait for them to do that. Then all I have to do is enter these one at a time for our assets, our liability, and our capital or equity accounts. I don't have to worry about the income in the expense accounts. And you don't have to do it today. You could do it in May if you wanted to. Of course, we're not going to get a full set of books until they're in here. But, you know, there's no rule that says you have to have balances before you can start the program. All right? So here we would put in how much it was if I was bringing over absolutely everything because, you know, that's what I'm going to do is bring over the entire trial balance. So let's say there was $4,500 worth of accountant fees last year. That's a debit balance, and I say, okay. So there we go. So you do that for every account that you need to bring a balance in for. Abacus will not let you post these until your debits equal your credits. Okay, I can't do that. It's going to yell at me because we have to have our debits equal our credits. We got to, you know, give ourselves a chance and start out doing things right. Okay, so one thing I should mention, as it says right up here, is this does not talk about trust. We are not talking about trust here. This is not applicable for trust. Trust has its own little island. If you've ever heard me in any of our trading classes, trust is its own little island. Everything we need to do for trust is done under the trust drop-down menu, meaning putting in beginning balances for trust for each matter, writing checks for trust out of each matter, reconciling the account. Everything is done here. These will feed into the GL automatically. You don't have to do a thing. So those two accounts, your trust cash and your trust liability, will automatically be in the system. It's not something you have to contend with here. Okay. Remember, any questions, please go ahead and pop them in that questions box. And if I can maneuver this little system here, hopefully I'll be able to answer them for you. So we get our beginning balances in there, like I say, at any point. But they feed into our GL, which of course reports to all of our accounting reports. Now, during the normal course of the week and the month, everybody's entering, or somebody, at least one person, is entering client payments. That is how the cash, or not just cash, I should say revenue and input into the checkbook is updated in Abacus. So that is not any kind of journal entry or anything like that. That is basically done through payments received. So if we haven't had a class yet on the billing side of Abacus, you really want to take one of those, because that it will contend with payments received and how you allocate payments to bills, to invoices, to timekeepers for productivity purposes. It all ties together. This particular option here, payments received, is what feeds the productivity reports on the fee side. So they are all tied together. This updates the operating account. Okay, on the GL side, it updates the revenue account, it updates our income statement. So it's all being taken care of kind of behind the scenes. Okay, so that's our money coming in. All of our money coming in is going to be done as a payment received, unless, of course, we have a few oddball things that happen, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But the majority of the money coming into the firm is going to be entered through payments received. And, of course, we have our buckets or our posting files. Oh, this is one of them. And like I said, this talks to the checkbook, the operating account, talks to the revenue accounts with a deposit date here. And, of course, we add our payments in here by matter. Okay, and we know all matters is our little white lie that we have to make sure we actually allocate it to a specific matter. Oh, this guy doesn't even owe me money, but he's so nice, he's going to pay me ahead of time. So we put that in here. Okay, how did we receive it? It's always a nice thing. So follow up later. Okay, applied against an invoice or no invoice in this case. Have to come over here. Oops, I kind of jumped ahead of myself here. Allocate it for something. We're going to say this is all fee money. Okay, and basically that's it. And then we post this with the appropriate date. And does everybody understand what that means? When you post, it's asking you what day did the money actually go into the bank account, not just what it defaults to on the current date, because this plays into your bank reconciliation. And if you all like your hair, you don't want to pull it out by having the wrong dates in here. So please pay attention to this little message so that you can catch your posting date each time. Okay, so that's money coming in. Now, what about money going out? Well, the majority of the money going out of the law firm is going to be done through a check writer. Okay, and we're sticking to operating pretty much here today. Basically, we have two different check writers, and we have a full AP class that goes through every nook and cranny of these check writers so that you understand when to use which one. But we've got the demand check writer, which is our down and dirty simple check writer. And then we have the more sophisticated check writer, shall we say, that actually can operate with batch check writing so that you can pay a bunch of bills at one time. So the money going out generally is done as a check, or in either case here, no matter which check writer you're using, you can mark it that it was an online transaction. And I think we all know an online transaction simply means don't use a check number. The system automatically assigns what I call a transaction number that has a little letter A, like an apple, at the end of the transaction number, so we don't use up our check stock when we don't need to. But those numbers come through to our bank reconciliation so we can still reconcile the transactions. So money going out generally is done through one of these check writers. But of course, our class is about the general ledger. So I can't just say money going in, money coming out, isn't that nice and easy? we have to talk about the odd things, the place we go to fix a lot of things that may have not been done correctly. Well, that's why we have the general ledger drop-down menu. And in here, just to get us started, let's talk about the recurring journal entries. Now, you all probably have those odd things that happen that need to be recorded each month, because if we can't put it in as a client payment and we're not writing a check for it, how do we get it in the system? Well, this is where you come. And if it is something that is always happening, why not set it up as a recurring journal entry? Because it's a lot easier than trying to figure out the journal entry every single time. So let's see what I mean by this. Under recurring journal entries, I've got a few set up. Now, excuse me. Sometimes I get a little too excited here. Let me take a sip of water. Okay. Basically, I use this for payroll. If you are in charge of getting payroll into your system, we know there's no longer a payroll module, so we got to get them in here. And the way to get those transactions in here are through the journal, the journal entries. So I've got a couple payroll entries in here because I say I have payroll twice a month. Okay, if you have payroll 3 times a month, you'd want to set it up for that. And this, we can change these numbers. The idea is to get the journal entry set up once. And what happens is it will take these and set them in the system so that you can post them, but you're not having to figure out the debits and the credits. So let's start with this one. This is simple. Say you have your health insurance company, you don't necessarily write them a check or go online and pay them. You may have some agreement where they just extract the money out of your bank account once a month. Well, I know that money's going out every month, so I'm going to set up a recurring journal entry. So when I came in and added it, general's great. It really doesn't matter what you call it as long as you don't call it a trust adjustment, okay, because these all go to all aspects of the GL. It's just how you want to designate them. You put in the first date you're setting it up. Abacus will increment by month with this day of the month already in here, so it knows next month make it the February 28th, the next month make it March 28th, April 28th, so it picks it up from here. The dollar amount, what is it for? And then we have our debit and credit situations, our tabs, where we say what is being debited when this journal entry is done. So, of course, this is health insurance. Obviously, there's room here to split it out amongst more than one account if that is necessary, okay? And we have another tab for the credits. And obviously, this is cash. Nice and simple, right? But if you set it up now, one time, you won't have to set this up every single month. It will, what I call merge, or what Abacus calls merge, into your posting bucket, your posting file. So we get these all set up. And they can be a little more complicated than this. Okay. Actually closed. I have closed a month, so it's yelling at me. Okay, we'll get to closing months here in a little bit. But basically, you're setting these up. Your payroll ones, like I say, may be a little more complicated because you've got a lot more accounts to debit and credit. But if you can set it up and the amounts change, and we don't have to change them here, we just get the basics set up here. So let's look at payroll. I'm not going to get into this too deep because, like I say, our training classes we have online for you to sign up for, you're one-on-one, usually with me, and we go through your situation, okay, your chart of accounts. Here, like I say, it's got to be a little broader. But I've got my debit account set up in here for all of my different debits to my GL, including my payroll service that has to be paid every time they do payroll for me. Okay, and of course I have my credit accounts that will set up my payables for my different taxes until those taxes are physically paid to the government. So there you go. So I can get that set up. So the idea is to get them in here. Get them in here, get them set up so that they're waiting for you. Now, even if they fluctuate, okay, now payroll, I'm just getting the backbone in there kind of, so I have a big dollar amount because I know I'm going to change that out for many different accounts. But something as simple as bank service charges, we know that's one debit, one credit, but every month it changes. So I'm making sure I'm not going to post it with a penny. Nothing costs a penny. I'm just setting it up the first time this way. So here again, here's my debit, well, the date, the amount, blah, blah, blah. Here's my debit to bank charges, my credit to cash, Okay. Now, what happens if I do that one more time? I'm going to, oh, okay. What happens is at the beginning of each month, a message will pop up on your screen and say, hey, you've got 6 recurring journal entries. Would you like to post them now? And what it does is that when you say yes, it comes and takes these, it assigns it the appropriate month, it picks these dates, and it takes these and it pushes them up into post journal entries. So it's taking what we have set up and moving it up there. So now I can go into my bucket and I can edit these out to be the proper dollar amounts. All I have to do is change the amounts. I don't have to figure out the debit account and the credit account and all of that pain in the hiney. Okay, so technically this is what it does. I'm going to pretend I'm not going to, it's easier if I just show you this way. Okay, you could do it manually like this, or you can have the option turned on. I'll show you where to turn it on so it gives you the message in the morning when you open your machine. But what it does is it looks at the date on your computer, and it is, 1st of February. It will ask me if I want to merge these, and it's going to take February and assign it to February 5th, February 28th, etc. And it takes them all, and merges them, and all you will see is this message right here. And what does that mean? Oops, I have a few in here because I guess I've done this a few times before without finishing them up here. But you can see down here are my February recurring journal entries. So it just took all of those and it listed them here. And now I can simply highlight it, go in, and change the dollar amount to what it's supposed to be. I don't have to figure out the debit account and the credit account. So that is a lot easier than having to set the journal entries up from scratch. So if you can do that for things that happen all the time in your firm that aren't a check or a client payment, I think this is the way to go. Okay? Right. Now, when they are good to go, then of course you highlight them. We'll just do a few here. And you post them. And that just updated your general ledger. That's it. You're done for those entries. Okay, so that's a good thing. Now let's talk about, and if you don't mind, I'm just going to get these out of here because it's kind of confusing to have all that stuff sitting here. Let's talk about, okay, that's great. Set up the ones you can. But what about the ones you can't? Well, then we're kind of left to our own little brains, and we're going to come in and go to the GL, go to post journal entries, and add them in ourselves. Okay, so that's where we pick the type of entry. If you do pick cash receipt or you do pick cash disbursement, it's going to automatically do the proper side with your operating account for you. So I guess there is a little shortcut there. I like to think through my journal entry and make sure in my head I know I'm debiting such and such and crediting so and so. But these two will automatically do half the journal entry for you. Okay, so sometimes that helps because now you know, okay, am I debiting or crediting? Oh, it already did that side. I got to do the other side. All right, and you can get these onto your 1099s by having a payee here for cash disbursements. Because we all know 1099s are coming up here soon. So here we go. We would pick our payee if we wanted to. We don't have to. You, of course, would put in the dollar amount, put in the description, come in and do the debit side. Okay, let's just do one. Let's pretend we don't have bank service charges set up. Okay, if I just use general, I'll go through the whole thing. Today's date and $15, bank service charges, because I don't have one set up in my recurring journal entries because I haven't done that yet. So here I go, I'm manually doing it. I come here, I'm going to debit bank service charges. There they are. And that's $15. And I add it to my little drop-down list. Yes, please. Okay, and I'm going to credit my cash account. And you can look everything up one at a time if you want to. $15 and add it. Okay, and it's done. So now you're ready to post. But see how the recurring journal entries will just feed it in here and you don't have to go through those steps. Okay, let's see. Oh, look, we have a question. Okay. Let's see. Okay, a couple questions. Sorry about this, guys. I kind of just got on a roll there. Owner draws. What account? I get warnings when I put them under capital. Okay. Oh, I wish I could read this whole thing. Okay. Owner draws is a very good question. Your chart of accounts does not come with owner draws already set up. So you definitely will want to add accounts under your capital or equity accounts. Under File, Set Up, Chart of Accounts. Come in here and let me move these out of the way. Okay, so let's move down here a little bit. Okay, you're going to want to set up one. Draw account for JG. That's one I set up one time this year at some point or last year. But you can add your own account. It's going to be, it starts with a 3-1, something that has not been used. I don't know if I've used that one or not. Nope. And then draw account or whatever you want to call it. Okay, with the initials of the person here, and then everything you do for them will go into that account. So, okay, it knows it's an equity account. You don't need to worry about this, and it is a subheader, and we're done. So now you have that account, and when you do your journal entries, you have that account to utilize. It has to be a subheader or a detail account. If it's giving you some error and you have that set up, let me know because something's going on, but you may have called it a type or a header account, and Abacus doesn't want to use those because those are pretty words that go on the financial statements only. Okay. Why is the recurring expense entered as a debit and a credit? Well, it wants to know what accounts are being debited and what accounts are being credited. We have to hit both sides of, double-sided journal entries here. Maybe I'm not understanding your question, so please be forward with your emails to me. Maybe you can explain a little more. Maybe I'm not getting it, but yeah, we make you do the debits, we make you do the credits so that it's a double-sided accounting system. So your trial balance is always in balance. You have your expenses, usually expenses are debited and cash is credited because you're taking money away. Okay. Let's see. Okay. So how do we see everything that's going on in our general ledger? In my mind, that's a big part of, we do the work every day. We're putting in payments. We're writing checks, all that good stuff. But then comes the day the accountant sends us something and says, why do you have a $20,000 debit in postage expense? Uh-oh, what did I do? And you figured out you debited postage when you wrote a check and you meant to do rent because they're next to each other on the chart of accounts. Well, that's really post-journal entries, right? You're going to go in and fix it. But how do you find it? That's where journal activity comes into play. I call this my treasure hunting tool. Because you're going and hunting through your GL to find out what the heck's going on. So this little screen gives you a number of ways to actually go through and look for things in your general ledger. Now, this has nothing to do with the billing side. Everything under GL basically is only the accounting side. When this is why you do not enter client payments here because there is nowhere to enter a matter number on anything in the general ledger. Okay, we're strictly talking about the general ledger, the books. Okay, if it has to do with a client, we got to think about what is it, where are we going to do it. All right, so journal activity. First of all, your date range. You always want to incorporate your date range. And I know in my life, when I use this program in the real world, I was constantly at the beginning of a new year putting in the wrong year. So you may want to go back to January of 2018 if you're constantly looking things up. Because if it was dated with 2018 instead of 2019, you'll be able to pull up records quickly. Okay, and check it out. All right, so we have our start date, we have our end date. So that's, if you just choose your date frame and you hit refresh, it's going to bring up every single journal entry that was done through this date range. Okay, so we may want to narrow it down a bit. Now, in my mind, the most logical thing to do now is to narrow it down to a particular account. Okay, if we're dealing with the cash account, let's look up the cash account. So we'll take operating. And of course, that now redefines what we're looking at here. It's still through this date range, but it's only entries in this case, our operating account. Okay, so hopefully this will start narrowing down what we're looking for. Now, my little clue is the type of journal entry. Okay, so this 21 and 22 say ADJ. That's an adjusting entry. When we're doing our adjusting entries, if we're having to make a journal entry to fix something, I always call it an adjusting entry. Let me just pop this screen open again. I'm hoping not making you too dizzy here. But when we're in here fixing something, I always call it adjusting. I make so many mistakes, right? I have no problem admitting that. And this way, by naming it so that this is an adjusting entry, I'm easily going to be able to find it here because I'm looking. Okay, I know I fixed that. Where did I fix it? So I'm looking at journal entries that are ADJ for adjusting. Obviously, DISB are disbursements. GEN is general. Okay, general can be a voided check. Abacus will make a journal entry for the voided check, and they name it with GEN. And of course, these are just incremental numbers that update on its own. You never have to put in, you never assign a journal entry number. Obviously, journal entries you do will be assigned GEN as well if you call them general. And then, of course, cash receipts, if I have any receipts in here. There's one. Okay, so there are CPTs. So you can kind of look at those. Then, of course, the account number, the debit, the credit. The reference number could be a check number. Okay, if you wrote a check, most likely could be a check. In this case, this was a voided check, so it's stating so. And then the fact, if it was a journal entry, it will say so. Everything you do in this program that has anything to do with your books gets pushed down to the bank reconciliation. So whether it was a journal entry or a check or a cash receipt, they're all going to show up on the bank reconciliation. So you don't have to worry about what you called it when you did the journal entry, right? Everything should go to the bank reconciliation. Now, of course, we all know that the mistakes we corrected aren't going to show up on the bank statement. We have to just know to clear those on our own. But they all go through. So don't worry about what you call it. I just shy away from trust adjustment because that's messing with the trust account. And like I said, everything I do for trust should be done under this drop-down menu. You cannot get in trouble with your trust account if you maintain that one rule for trust. Okay, so besides this, if I didn't know what account or whatever, or maybe it is still my cash account and I want to narrow it down by dollar amount, I could just put in the dollar amount. And it will go get all of the transactions between this date range that has to do with that dollar amount. Now, that doesn't narrow it down much, but maybe a little bit, so I have a little less to look at. You could look it up by description. I'm not quite sure, what we're doing there, but let's see. Let's say it was for rent. And I hit refresh. Okay, there. That is my landlord. That is the rent account. So that way it's bringing up everything that was classified as rent. So that's another way of looking things up. Then if you get into a little more complicated system or situation, I should say, you could do it by journal entry number. Say there was a payroll entry and you're just trying to figure it out. Well, you could come in and pick the journal entry number. I'm just making this up here as I go. I don't have a journal entry number, but let's say 3483. It was a cash disbursement, 3483. It will give you the entire journal entry. So now you can make sure the debits equal the credits. And now you know that all these accounts were debited, and maybe that will help in your search. So this is the treasure hunting tool to be used when you're on a mission to find out why it is what it is when you're looking at your financial reports. Okay, let's see. Where else are we going? I promise closing month and years. First of all, you don't have to close a month, and you don't have to close a year. So please don't make that pressure you to do so. Obviously, you may want to. Maybe if you've got lots of people working in the accounting department, and sometimes people get in there and get a little crazy, and maybe you want to shut the month down when it was concluded, you want to close your month. That's okay. You can close your month and you can unclose it. So obviously you need to have security on these month end closing and unclosed month, because if I make a mistake and close a month, it's not the end of the world. It might be if you close the year, but not when you close the month. I can unclose it. So let's say I close my month and then I realize, oh, I never did the bank rec. I forgot to do the bank rec. Well, I can unclose it and do the bank rec and then reclose it if I want to. What happens when you close a month is it stops. Oh, I think it's going to close it now. It stops anybody from going in and making another entry in that closed month. So whatever you reported to the tax accountant remains the same. Makes them happy. No numbers changed, and it will stop you from doing those entries with 2018 instead of 2019, because December of 18 was closed. You can't do anything prior to that date. So it will stop you from having those mistakes happen. Okay, I'm going to cancel this so it doesn't close my month. But you put in the month and the year. It wants you to print reports here. Okay, if you wanted to, you could do so. And then it simply says, if you try to make a journal entry or write a check, or I think even enter a client payment with a date to that date or prior, it will stop you. Okay. Losing the year is a big, big deal. First of all, you don't have to. Okay. If and when you want to. And the reason I say you don't have to, I should kind of clarify that. You don't have to, because every financial report has a start date and an end date. So you can get reports for a current period that does not include accrual from another year. Okay? So you don't have to close your year. Now, most folks will, simply because maybe they want separate accounts for their retained earnings for each year, and that we can get into a private class if you do want to do that. But basically, when you close your year, there is no accessing anything from that point earlier. So when you do this, it gives you warnings, trying to make sure you've done all your bank recs, done a backup of the program as well as the data. Okay, not just the data. We want the program backed up as well. The idea being, the IRS comes in 5 years and wants to see 2018. We take our backup of the program, backup of the data, and install them on a separate machine, and we can run that till the cows come home, and it doesn't interfere with the current version. Okay? So if you want to close your year, that's fine, but do not do it before you have to make sure all your tax returns have been filed. And you want all reports printed before you do it. Okay? Alrighty. So I don't want to scare you with that. You can do it if you want to, but there's no coming back from it. Once you close it, it's done. There is the archived years activity, so you can look at it. You can still see things. It's not like it disappears into the dust, but you can't do anything with it. You can't make any changes at all. That's why I say, not so much, but if you do, you can see things here. This looks just like that journal activity we've already talked about, the treasure hunting tool. This is the same thing, except it's only for closed years. Okay. And last but not least, our GL reports. Here we are. These are the basic general ledger accounting reports, the few extra thrown in here. I like the disbursement detail report myself because it gives me a little more information. This report will include matter numbers. If you were looking for disbursements for clients and matters, it will at least tell you which matter it was. So if you have to void a check, it kind of lets you know which matter is going to be updated when that check is voided. So I like that report. Obviously, we have the normal everyday balance sheet, income statement, trial balance. There's 3 or 4 different income statements. You come in, you can pick different ways of looking at them. So, these are your general ledger reports everybody's accustomed to. People seem to enjoy the income expense summary report. I believe it gives you 12 months at a time for your expenses, so you can see them all together, listed out month by month. The trial balance, of course, is the main one. Okay, that's got everything on it from when to when. Okay, so it's got the beginning, the in between, and the ending. So last but not least, I kind of want to throw one more thing in here. You can set up report groups. So when you find a report you like, wouldn't it be nice just to know where that report is so you can push one button and get all those standard reports every time? And, maybe one boss likes different reports from another boss. Well, you can come down here, open your report groups, add a new report group. Obviously, I did one for Kelly. I did one for me. You could just add your own in here. But then what you're doing is you come over here, okay, Perry's reports. What do I want to add to my group? I've already put some in there, but let's say I want something from AP. Okay, let's say I would like my detail report. I say include it. So it's going to include it in Perry's reports. Include. This message is very boring. Don't need that one so much. Here it's going to use my operating account. I say save. It puts it in my little list. And I do this over and over as I find the reports I like in the different sections of Abacus. And then on the magic day where you want your reports, you can come down here and say, okay, I want Perry's reports, and I want to use whatever dates. You can either use these dates, this week, this month, this quarter, this year, last quarter, okay? Or you type in the dates yourself. And the one I like here, previewing it doesn't do much good for me. I'd like to email them to myself because I have nothing else to do on Saturday but look at accounting reports, right? But this way you can email them to whoever's requesting them. Okay, let's see if we have any more questions over here. Let's see if I can read them. If we had the program in 18, but I'm only starting utilizing the GL since 19, should I close 18 to clear out old records? That is a very good question, because I did not mention that whether you're using the general ledger or not, anytime you've come in and you've put in client payments through payments received, it updated your GL. It updated your cash account. So a lot of people that are now starting to utilize the GL that haven't open up their check writer and they're like, well, not my case, but they have millions of dollars here. Isn't that wonderful for my account balance? Well, we know that's not true. Okay, but Abacus is updating the GL. You don't know it's really doing it, but it does it because that's the way the program was built. So what you're going to want to do is close the year, and you're probably going to need to do some adjusting. And you would want to do adjusting entries. In other words, clean it up and then close the year and then start with 19. But here again, you don't have to do that in that order. You can start using the program, then go back and close 18, but you probably are going to have to make journal entries to balance it out because your profit and loss is going to be astronomical because you had no expenses. Here again, Kim, if you have more questions, please email me. Perhaps we can set up a session where I can help you with your actual books for your firm instead of looking at this lovely demo database that apparently my firm doesn't make much money, and we go in the red all the time writing checks. Oh, okay. Let's see. Do we have any other questions here? Now, if you wake up in the middle of the night and you think of something, please feel free to email to webinars@abacusnext.com, and they'll send the questions to me and I can answer them. I did just want to show you here the way you can sign up for a class. So I've opened my abacusnext.com over here, and you want to slide all the way to the bottom. Yeah, we'd love you to read all the stuff, but the idea here is to go all the way to the bottom of the web page, and you'll see a bunch of small print. Under support, there's schedule a service. And when you click on that, it's going to open it up, and there's our terms and conditions. Of course, we all work in law firms. We know what that means, so we say next. And then you pick your product. Well, obviously today we're all Abacus Law. So we picked Abacus Law. Then it's going to ask you if you want Abacus Law classes. Okay, that's all dealing with the practice management side. Abacus Law, onboarding, that's practice management side. But if we move down here, where am I going? Where am I going? Here, got to move it this way. There we go, Abacus Law. Here we go to billing and accounting. Now, these are the general classes we recommend you take. Okay, 3 of them. We're about to add the general ledger as another one. Okay, but for right now, what you want to do is keep going down. Up this way, Perry. And there is billing and accounting. These are the other classes. So if you click here, it brings up many other accounting and billing classes that you can take. We have all kinds of stuff. They've really added to the spectrum here. So you can go through and, whoa, sorry, there's a lot of different classes here. So you just go a little slower than I did. And you can go through and see if there's anything here. When you click next, it asks you for the date and the time you would like to take it, and then we're notified and we get to meet and talk together. Okay, so we're not just sitting here in silence. Okay, any other questions here? I don't want to run over time, but I do thank you all for coming to this class. I am very excited to have the turnout we did. Usually I don't get many people for accounting, but this is great. Like I say, kudos to everyone. Any questions, send them to Abacus, webinars@abacusnext.com. And I wish you all a great week and a great start to the year. Thank you guys very much. Okay, bye-bye.